line, if you have Shadow or Death, if you have Psychic Screams at the right time, it can feel very, very one-sided for the Priest. But also, if the Warlock just has threat after threat after threat, it can be quite difficult for the Priest to contest that. Twilight Drakes especially are very good in this matchup.
I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, Barry. I wish you would have thought about that a little bit. I would have rather seen a life tap, especially when you keep Giant in your hand. Oh, goodness. I'm having a strong, stern talking with Barry.
Life Taparino, Pleaserino. Yeah, you're not worried about St. Edward's dealing a bunch of damage really fast. You just want to tap to your heart's content and make sure this Giant comes down on turn 4, and now it's going to come down on turn 5.
I mean, maybe their strategy is just to get as much pressure down as early as possible. That way, you know, they don't give St. Edward's quite the tools that they would need to use. Like, for instance, they don't get the Giant down, so they're not playing Twilight Acolyte. And they're getting, like, these mid-range threats on the board that can kind of rack up damage over time. Not quite sure I agree with that game plan, but...
A lot of what Barry is doing with this series leads me to believe that maybe they are newer players with at least this deck. Because even Warlock is a deck that prides itself on consistency, on being very straightforward, and much of that comes from just its ability to get down these giant threats very quickly. So in certain matchups, you have to prioritize Mountain Giant on turn 4, Twilight Drake on follow-up, life tap as much as you possibly can to get through to your powerful endgame cards like the Lich King and Blood Reaver Gul'dan. And to me, it seems like Barry just do not have the reps in with this deck to necessarily maybe understand all of the matchups at a high level. And that's honestly to be expected in this tournament. These are not competitive professional Hearthstone players. A lot of them are, you know, maybe players who've hit Legend a couple of times and who just want to get together and play for fun. And that's honestly kind of refreshing. We're so used to seeing everybody play the absolute best that a player possibly can, and then there's not much room for improvement.
Oh, I think Barry figured it out. Life tap first. You can do it, Barry.
Still can't play the Giant this turn because they played the Drake last turn without tapping. That's, you know, kind of the hole they walked into.
You're so sweet.
They're trying to burn something.
Shadow Reaper Anduin would be a really big burn. St. Edward's very happy to see the Gluttonous Ooze be burned instead. Anduin, Mind Blast. Twilight Acolyte.
I think Anduin's a very important one there.
Yeah.
Maybe even a Psychic Scream. Just burning some removal could be good too.
And Nosferatu is not a usual inclusion in this deck. Usually you'll see 2 Doomsayers and 2 Sun Fairy Protectors, or 2 Plated Beetles and 2 Sun Fairy Protectors. But the ability to disrupt a combo, though it is quite random, to say the least, is not always a bad thing, considering this even Warlock can really struggle against decks with inevitability.
I must consider.
How do you feel about that?
I think they need to do something this turn just to kind of stage off some pressure, because they don't want to have the Psychic Scream such a, you know, small board state. So I like playing the Twilight Acolyte, especially because they do have another one. So I think it's fine. I definitely like getting something onto the board.
I think it's fine because they have another one. But I do still wonder if maybe that card is just worth more. They're tapping last again. I really just want to see them get into the habit of tapping first. Unless your Mountain Giant already costs 3 mana and you are going to burn a card if you life tap, hit that button. See what you're going to get.
I definitely think Twilight Acolyte has to be the play here. As long as you stage off damage, you're fine. You also get an 8-4. You can potentially take the Mountain Giant on the following turn. I think it's just too strong not to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Looks like they also want to play the Twilight Drake as well. Put quite a bit of pressure on, and I don't mind this either. I think
Fine by me.
Strong play.
This is great ordering. Even if Barry have Spellbreaker, which we can see they do now, they still have to choose between killing the Twilight Drake or killing the Twilight Acolyte, very likely. We can see with Spellbreaker and Defile, they can full clear the board. But that's maybe a bit much to expend. St. Edward's does already have 10 bursts from hand with Holy Fire and Mind Blast. Plus the Alexstrasza.
I'm really trying to find a way that they... Alright, so what they can do... Oh, no, that's too awkward. I'm trying to find a way that they Spellbreaker their own Giant to get it back to being an 8/8.
Sure.
And the only real way I can see that while they clear the board is they would trade off, they would take a value trade, and they would Defile. The only issue with that is the minion wouldn't stay alive.
They could have Spellbreaker the Giant, traded over the Drake. Drake would have had 1, Giant would have had 4, and then trade over the Gnome Feratu, the Giant would have died because of the Spellbreaker.
On
yeah,
the board.
That's
what I was looking at. The issue with that is no matter how you did it that way, it was going to be very awkward. I just wanted them to do it because I think you need to push damage in this matchup. You can't afford to have these really slow turns because right now, if they had 1 more mana, they'd be 1 damage off lethal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. You know what I wouldn't mind here?
Cabal Shadow Priest on the Doomsayer.
Yes. I wouldn't mind that here. I actually think that, as crazy as that sounds, that might be the play.
Just take it so that Barry has to lose anything that they play on turn 8, which is like Lich King. Bone Mare wouldn't be enough reach.
So you take it because you push the 4 damage face. If they decide to answer their own Doomsayer to try and play something, you then have lethal on the follow-up. If they let the Doomsayer ride, you just play a Primordial Drake and you have now board initiative.
I will be honest, I said it as a complete joke, but it makes a lot of sense. It really does. Turn 8 is the power turn for Warlock. They have Lich King, they have Bone Mare, they have Hooked Reavers. Bone Mare would have been 6 damage. Lich King would have just died to the Doomsayers. I think that would have been a really viable play. I don't hate this from Barry. Hooked Reaver's more power on board, and I think I would have just gone with it because it's straightforward.
I think they're worried about playing double Hooked Reaver because of Shadow Reaper Anduin. But if they have Shadow Reaper Anduin, you might just be losing this game. So
yeah,
sometimes you have to take that calculated risk.
I think you are. I think this is a point where Barry had to race, because if Anduin is there for St. Edward's, they just play it, and then they ping with everything that they play. And Barry's very likely dead. 3 power on board isn't going to beat Shadow Reaper Anduin. We want that zebra pelt production. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you start the fire too? It's getting a little cold in here.
We didn't start the fire. But you can.
We didn't start the fire. No fire? You're gonna leave me out in the cold production? Wow, I see how it is.
One of my self-proclaimed claims to fame is that I know the words to that song. Thanks, production. They're good to us. They brought us mugs of water earlier because we were thirsty, but then they took them away because they were branded. I was like, no, I want to have a fun mug in front of me. We can pretend like we're talking about books and drinking coffee or something. But
production, the fire went out. I'm going to need you to
rehash
the fire.
Alex Strauss has got the fire. It's all good. I mean, St. Edward's is actually struggling a little bit for reach here. And the Siphon Soul tech for Barry going to prove pretty good here, but they, again, little ordering things. If they'd played the Hooked Reaver first, they had a 7/7, but they siphoned first. And now it's just a 4/4. And they lost honestly, a point of health on the Twilight Drake.
If it wasn't for the Twilight Drake, I wouldn't have been opposed to making it 4 attack. Just to kind of protect yourself against Anduin, because there's a potential you could beat Anduin now.
Yeah, but objectively, play the Drake first. It's little things that I think they just need to take their time. Because it seems like they're catching themselves every single time that they do these things. And they're like, oh, that was dumb. Why did we do that? But
they're just having fun, Cora. Let them have fun.
Dude, I'm all for having fun. But a 4/7 Twilight Drake is way more fun than a 4/6.
Oh, I have so much more fun when I walk into the party and I see a 4/7 Twilight Drake. If there were 4/6 Twilight Drakes at that party,
I'm
leaving. Oh my gosh. Can you even imagine what a 4/6 Twilight Drake would look like? Wow.
Not in a house party setting, no. I think it would be quite big. Probably too big for the house.
Then why would you want a 4/7 there?
So maybe
that's bigger.
So maybe it's in the yard instead.
Well, this is Medivh's house that we're talking about, so it's like Medivh's party, because that's the only place you would see a Twilight Drake.
Okay, so it's in the menagerie.
The menagerie's for guests only.
You're saying Twilight Drake crashed the party?
Yeah, that is not a guess. If it was a 4-6, it definitely crashed the party. If it was
What
a
a
4-7,
jerk.
if it was a 4-7, no, that's prime guess material.
Why you gotta do that, Twilight Drake? That's rude.
No, they don't.
They can't actually hear what production is saying to you, Jace.
Yeah, but Tommy can, and that's all that matters.
Tommy is firmly in the 4-6 Twilight Drake camp. He says they have feelings too. But this is going to be a 4-7 Twilight Drake.
Obviously, the superior Twilight Drake.
It's a suck at 4-6s. Oh, we're going a bit too far down the rabbit hole. Let's rein it in. Blood Reaver Gul'dan brings back Homunculus and a Reaver, I believe. But I would also just really love to see Barry get this Gul'dan online so they can start to heal their face, but also kill their opponent.
I think they may want to consider trying to clear this board, though. Because if you play... How many Vulgar Homunculuses are in the pool? There's at least one, I think.
Yeah, just the one.
There's one Hooked Reaver. Okay, I think you can afford to get away with it because you do have one in the pool.
You just kill off the Cabal Shadow Priest, get the Hooked Reaver and the Homunculus, and then go up to 21.
However, I'm not opposed to this either. Just clear up the board, play the Hooked Reaver.
Sure.
You do die to double Mind Blast, Holy Fire, and you've seen them hold 2 cards in their hand. So this is quite a risky play.
That's it!
I called it!
Okay.
Oh no, Barry does not look happy. They're like, what? How is it lethal? Oh, they look like they forgot.
no.
Oh no, Barry! We forgot! We forgot!
Oh no, poor guys. Yeah, I would have liked to see Blood Reaver Gul'dan there. The earlier you can get it online and, you know, not die in the process, the better. So Edwards there, obviously picking up the Mind Blast off the top, shortened the clock on that game. But I do think that they played that one quite cleanly. I think that there's maybe just a discrepancy in experience level, at least between Barry on the Even Warlock and Edwards on, so far, the Hunter and the Priest. Edwards seems to have a very clean game plan. And I'm just going to stop talking. Jace, what do you got there?
4-6. Don't make it 4-7. No,
4-7.
don't. Get rid of it.
4 mana, 7. 7.